regular season has the Bison in a familiar spot.
Kobe Johnson taking it all the way, 44 yards for the score.
After earning the #1 seed in the playoffs, NDSU got to take Thanksgiving weekend off and start the second season. The freshman phenom at quarterback has been tabbed already for several conference awards.
And Trey Lance is broken free. 35 yards, touchdown.
But the ultimate team prize is still on the horizon. The January migration to Frisco, Texas starts the first week of December in Fargo. It's playoff time on the KBLY KFYR Bison Football Network.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Welcome into the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show here in the lobby at the Fargo Dome as we get ready for some playoff football here between North Dakota State and Nichols. Bison gearing up for this one off the bye week, rolling hot off bye weeks as well. This is an exciting one. You can feel the excitement. I think the crowd's going to show up. We were a little bit worried about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see, I don't have a microphone here, so I will be playing off of my co-host here. But yeah, I think when you get into the playoffs, Beth, as you know, there's a different vibe.
Sorry, you're done talking. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, just cut me off whenever you want. There's a different vibe around the Fargo Dome. Everyone knows that. We're hoping it's sold out. Who knows? But I think the fans who are here, Alex, are going to be excited. They're going to be loud.
It's December football, and what's better than that when you get into the playoffs? So even at the upper level, at the FBS level, it's December football. When you're playing in the month of December, you're playing for something, and that's what NDSU is playing for. 10 straight years they've been in the FCS playoffs. This is starting to become old hat, so you might understand why maybe there might not be a sellout when it all comes down to it. But this is an exciting time.
Never.
The Bison are playing for an FCS national championship, the #1 overall seed. Your team's record of 33 straight games, that might go by the wayside today. There's just a lot going on, and oh yeah, the ultimate prize down in Frisco, Texas.
I never give in. No, I want it full always. I demand excellence at all times. NDSU, the only football team I've ever covered. All I know is excellence. I came in 2010, and they've been rolling hot ever since.
And there's no such thing as too much winning, Beth. I don't care what anyone says, the blowouts, the lack of competition, whatever you want to call it. There is no such thing as winning. Ask the Nebraska fans, right, Beth?
Yeah.
I would kill for some wins.
It would take anything at this point. It would take anything down in Nebraska. So it's, like you guys said, it's an exciting time. And Nichols is a better team than I think people probably. You think Nichols probably haven't heard a lot about them. But I think it's a better team than you might expect.
Well, let's get in. We'll get into Nichols, and we'll talk about the Colonels coming in here and trying to upset the apple cart and take down the #1 seed. But let's get down to the rest of our crew. They are inside the dome. Brian Sean, Lee Timmerman, and Ryan Gellner. Guys.
Hey guys, welcome field side. Like you said, Brian Sean and Lee Timmerman. Guys, it is the second season, and it does have a little bit different feel at North Dakota State this time around.
I feel like anytime you get to Thanksgiving, you have that bye, and all of a sudden you flip the switch, it's December, and it's playoff football. I think it just has a different air. It just does. You're playing teams that you haven't necessarily seen. We have one today in Nicholls State. Not a program that I think the fan base is very familiar with. This is a program in Nicholls State that has never even made it to the FCS quarterfinals in history of its program. So they have a chance to make some history today, and boy, would they ever, taking on one of the most successful FCS programs ever.
We've talked about this before. North Dakota State is young, and when it comes to playoffs, that's a little different for them.
Yeah, very much so. One of the things that I got the biggest chuckle out of was looking over the game notes from Nicholls State, and one of the first paragraphs it talked about how one of the hottest teams in the FCS with 5 straight wins. Well, the team they're playing today has got 33 straight wins. So I thought that if that gives you a little bit of perspective of the two programs, I laughed out loud to myself. It caught me funny this week.
North Dakota State is very hot. Nicholls State is a senior-dominant football team. We talk about young versus old. They do have that going for them.
Yeah, and you got to give some credit for Nichols, too. I mean, it's a team that lost 2 kind of head-scratching games in October, and they've had to win out to get to this point. There was no room for error in November. They found a way to win a couple of road games. They beat Southeastern Louisiana. They did a nice job against North Dakota last week, running the football and limiting the run. So the challenge now is, how do you take it up another level, come into this building, and try to control the line of scrimmage? That's what we don't know.
And that level about an hour away from kickoff down here on the field, guys. We'll have much more from the field. For now, though, we send it back upstairs, out the door, into the lobby. Tickets, I assume, are hot right now, guys.
Yeah, you know what, Gellner? I don't really appreciate that, making us feel like second-class citizens up here, like we've been banished from the Fargo Dome. Yeah, ESPN rules stipulate that we have to be outside of the dome after a certain part of the show, so we volunteered ourselves. But you know what? We're at the dome this year, not in studio.
Hey, and it's a good atmosphere out here. I see the fans streaming in. It's going to be an exciting time, no matter if there's 18,000 or 17,000. This Nichols team is playing in the dome for the first time since 2005. None of these guys have played here. And that, I think, is going to cause some issues.
I mean, you can see that in somebody's eyes when they take on the Fargo Dome for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially when things start getting rolling. I think if you could quiet the crowd early, that's going to be obviously key for Nichols. But when you can't, and you haven't been in an environment like this, it's like the whole stadium is coming down on top of you. I kind of felt similar when we played Seattle. We played Seattle Seahawks, and the first drive, it was like shaking in there. And luckily, we kind of silenced them. But if they can't do that, now it's like you're not only playing the #1 team in the country in North Dakota State, now you're also going against these fans. It can become a little intimidating.
Well, you know, Bison football fans, Bison football has sustained some excellence, but they've sustained quite the bit of excellence in the tailgate lot as well. Another impressive year out there, great crowd today. Mike Morkin was out there in the lot with the fans.
All right, we're here out in the tail. Very warm inside here. We've got a large group and a couple of contestants, and since it's the playoffs, we thought we'd step up the significance and challenge of our questions. So these are going to be a little tougher than they were during the regular season. Are you ready to play? Yeah. All right, let's go with you first. Your name?
Dale Madsen.
Dale, all right. Ready. What style of music does head football coach Matt Entz like to listen to more? Is it rock music or country music?
Rock music.
Seems like rock is the big one, and it's right, it's rock. Yeah. Coach Entz likes to listen to Metallica and Pearl Jam. All right. This is an educational game, isn't it? All right, you see how easy that was? All right, here we go. Question number 2. Your name, please?
Kylie.
Kylie. What is Bison head football coach Matt Entz's favorite NFL team? Is it the Steelers or is it the Cleveland Browns? Steelers. I believe she's playing.
I'm going to go with the Steelers.
The Steelers is correct. It's the Steelers. Wow, very good. Congratulations. See how easy that was, folks? Well, thanks for playing, and I think they've got other games going on behind us. Already done. Okay, how about a cheer for the Bison, huh?
All right, we'll be back with more from the Fargo Dome for the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
And welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. The Nichols Colonels invading the dome all the way from Thibodaux, Louisiana. Last week they played, it was like 70 degrees down there in the first round playoff game. A little bit different weather here in Fargo, North Dakota, and they're getting out of here before it gets really bad too. I've talked to a couple guys and they said it's cold. But I said, it's not cold yet.
Just wait.
Yeah, you guys are getting out of Dodge just in time. As we welcome you back into the Fargo Dome lobby, getting you set for second round playoff action. Let's get to know a little bit more about the Colonels as Ryan Gellner catches up with their play-by-play guy. Ryan?
Yeah, hi again. Thank you, guys. It is Jack Benjamin who calls the play-by-play for Nicholls State. And Jack, Nichols on a roll coming into the playoffs, playing well right now, 5 straight.
Yeah, they're on a roll. They're playing well. I think the rushing attack has been a huge part of it for us. Chase Forcade's been very efficient. You look at his numbers; they're not gaudy. You're not going to look at it and say, "Wow!" But he's been really efficient passing the ball. And then defensively, our rush defense probably as good as it's been all year right now.
Let's talk about running the football, because that's really, I think, what opened eyes around here when North Dakota was held to 44 rushing yards on one side, but then you guys go off for almost 320 yards running the football, really feeling it during the run.
Yeah, well, you talk to Tim Rebo. That's what he's done in his 5 years here. Try to run the football. We've got a sophomore running back in Julian Gums who just continues to develop and develop. Dontrell Taylor's been banged up, our number 2 guy, so he's back. He's healthy. And I just think the offensive line, the way they've matured, we lost 4 of our 5 starters from a year ago, so those guys have really come together as a group over the last couple weeks.
Defensively, Sully Lesh is one of the best in the nation. He knows how to sack the quarterback.
He certainly does. Yeah, he's getting up there, 36.5 for his career, so he's 1.5 shy of the Southland record. He's just a guy who knows how to win. He's, you came in as a guy who was under-recruited because of his size, but just has a way to get off double teams. You watch him, he's double-teamed, he's triple-teamed. That's the testament of a good player. You know it's coming. You still can't stop him with a double team.
Nichols State, used to the playoffs. You've been here the last couple of years. Have not been inside the Fargo Dome in the playoffs, which is a different atmosphere. What has Coach told the team about this atmosphere and about what they're about to experience?
Yeah, they haven't been in the Fargo Dome. You guys have won 25 straight here, obviously. It's a tough place to play. They know that. The one thing I would say about this group, they've played in big environments. Chase Forcade, our quarterback, his first start was in front of 90,000 fans in Athens, Georgia. So they've been there. We played at Manhattan, Kansas this year against the former coach, Chris Kleiman. So big environments, obviously. I think a big part of it, too, is I was talking to offensive coordinator Rob Christophil, being in whisper mode a lot of the time on offense, knowing that the noise is going to build up, not letting it factor in. But no, it's an experienced group, and I think the younger guys have veterans they can count on. You talk about playoff experience, it's gigantic to now be in here for a 3rd straight year.
The difference today, what do you think it is?
It has to be the trenches. It's always the line. Really, any game you talk about, but you look at what North Dakota State does, 7 titles in 8 years. It's controlling the line of scrimmage. It's a bruising offensive line. What do they average? 6'5", 6'6", and 315 pounds. So it's got to be the rushing attack on both sides. Yes, big plays. Turnovers are a factor. But at the end of the day, if we can't run the ball, if we struggle to stop the run, it's going to be tough sledding.
Jack, appreciate the time today. Have a wonderful call, and welcome to Fargo in North Dakota.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Guys, back to you.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Taking a look at the series history now between Nichols and North Dakota State here. A couple of meetings between the two schools, but the last one, 2005.
Yeah, and that was a trip down there, I believe, and then they did a little home and home. And like I said, we talked about earlier, I think this is going to be a little bit of a wake-up call for the Colonels having to come to the Fargo Dome and deal with this weather a little bit.
Actually, the first Division I win for NDSU was down in Thibodaux, Louisiana, for the Bison. That seems like forever ago that was the first Division I win when you consider that there's been, 7 national championships rattled off in between 2004 and now 2019. So very interesting that the Nicholls State, and I just saw a few other fans, I don't think they make sweatshirts for Nichols.
They dropped the state,
Excuse
remember,
me, you're correct, yes. It is just Nichols for the athletic department, but I don't think they make sweatshirts with Nichols branding on them, so it's a very funny to see what they got.
You know what?
Here.
I was calling for fresh meat, and I'm going to consider this fresh meat.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. When you look at this this matchup between these two programs, I'm impressed with parts of Nichols' game, but I'm still not completely sold on this. I think I have an issue. My respect level for the Southland Conference isn't quite there, but I do think they're an impressive program that's doing the right things. They're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Beth. I think you look at the Southland, and it's not a conference that you're going to look at and say it's one of the best in the FCS, but you have to respect what they did this year. They beat Central Arkansas, a seeded team. Many fans may know Central Arkansas, the 8th seed. They beat them. They win their conference. They beat Southeast Louisiana, who's the other team from the Southland, and all 3 of those teams are still in the playoffs, so they have done some impressive things there. They've also had a couple losses, like most teams around the FCS, where you kind of just scratch your head and you don't know what happened there.
Well, and with this Nichols team, you look at what their body of work is. Yeah, the Southland's a little bit different. They got a guy, Sully Lesh. We'll talk about him a little bit later on in the show. He's a 250-pound defensive tackle, so he's not the biggest guy. He's got a ton of sacks. He's the career FCS sacks record holder, but he plays in a pass-happy conference. When you go up against a Sam Houston State who chucks the ball around 40, 50 times a game, of course you're going to get sacks, right?
Well, and that's going to be one of the keys for me for Nichols. You look at, especially last week against UND, they did a good job against the run, and they kind of have all year, but they have not been good against the pass, which kind of surprised you in, like you just said, Alex, in a conference like that. So I think you're going to see, we've seen Trey Lance kind of, especially later in this year, be able to throw the ball around when he's been asked to. There's been times, I think at UC Davis or Missouri State, they completely sell out on the run, and the passing game wasn't necessarily there. We've seen it in Western Illinois comes to mind when he was able to just kind of chuck the ball around quite a bit, and I think we'll see that today too.
Yeah, and will Nichols be able to run the football effectively? I think that's the biggest question for Nichols is will they be able to run the ball effectively? They did last week against North Dakota. They ran over 300 yards in that game, but that might be a little bit different. You're at home. You're able to control the clock a little bit more. Some things went Nichols' way in that game. They were really effective moving the ball between the 20s.
Well, and that's what Derek Tuska said. Derek Tuska I talked to him this week about this run-pass offense, that if you had to pick anywhere for NDSU's defense to maybe have a weakness, the only place they don't lead the nation is in run defense. And he was like, you know what, if somebody wants to waste their time with the ball running it, we welcome it, because our offense is going to go right back out there. He had quite the smirk on his face when he finished that soundbite, because, hey, if you want to waste your precious time with the ball trying to run it on us, and I kept thinking, boy, and once you get into that red zone with this Bison defense.
Yeah, they have to be able to stop the run. If you're talking about Nichols, they have to be able to stop the NDSU running attack, and then they have to run the ball themselves. Chase Forcade, I know you guys will get into him a little bit more later when you do the QB comparison, but he's a guy, he scrambles around really well. He does. He's a dual threat guy. He does turn the ball over quite a bit, but he's also a savvy veteran. He's been around for a while, so I don't see the dome maybe affecting him as much, but he's got to be able to run around. He's got to be able to improvise if Nichols even wants a chance in this game.
Well, we're going to get much more into 4K here in the next segment here out at the Fargo Dome. Go ahead and stick around. We got plenty more coming up on this Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
FCS playoffs here as the North Dakota State #1 seed North Dakota State Bison taking on the Nichols Colonels out of the Southland Conference. Let's get into our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Injury Report. Ryan Gellner standing by. Ryan?
Hi guys, Dr. Bruce Pyatt is with us again this week, and this week we're talking about aftercare after the injury and what's right and what's wrong, if there is a right and wrong. Cold or hot? That's the question. We see a lot of cold baths. We also see a lot of hot tubs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody wants to jump in that hot tub. That feels a lot better, but what's the right thing for you to do? You know, if you're looking at just recovery from things where you've just overextended yourself a little bit, it probably doesn't make a big difference, and it's probably more related to what is comfortable for you. But the general rule is that if you're trying to do anything that's going to cut down on inflammation or irritation in the body, cold or ice is going to be much better for it. So you never can go wrong using a cold type treatment after an activity. If you've had an injury, 100% for sure you need to avoid the heat, because that's going to increase blood flow to the area, which is going to increase swelling, and that's going to really slow the recovery time.
These athletes, North Dakota State athletes, when they get done with the football game, are cold tubs still a thing?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. We can see that really helps to reduce the inflammation, because, you know, they've been out there and working hard and running around, but they've also been beat up a little bit. And so those muscles are not something you're going to want to throw heat on at that point. We use a lot of heat before activities, helps to warm up the tissue, loosen it up, makes you less prone to injury. But afterwards, once you've sustained some of those even micro traumas, then they're going to use the cold treatments with it.
Moms and dads that might be sitting at home, shoveling, running on the treadmill, they get done with their workouts, they're sore, they're tired. We talked about hot tubs, but is it a bad thing at that level, the amateur maybe athlete or the person at home?
If you haven't sustained an injury, I don't think there's anything wrong with using a hot tub afterwards. I mean, you got to be a little bit careful how long you're in there and stuff, just because it may incite a little bit more irritation with it. But short term, I think it's fine for it. But again, like I say, if there's any element of an injury where you've slipped or you've fallen or if you overextended something, then you definitely want to avoid the heat.
Go to the ice. That's why we ask the doctor, the guy that knows it all, Bruce Pyatt from Sanford. Thank you for the time, and we'll talk again next week.
Thank you very much.
Back to you guys. We're going to hit the hot tub.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Let's take a look at who is going to be in and who might not be in today for the Bison at our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Injury Report. Just a couple names, which is nice. Just a couple names on this list. Josh Babbage, the tight end, he is questionable. We think he's available, but it's unclear whether or not the Bison will use him. Cole Karch, he has been dealing with an injury over the last couple weeks. He is good to go. We think we'll see Cole Karch today on that defensive line, and Bartholomew Ogbu
we will not see him, although some good news for
great news
Ogbu,
about
for Barty.
Ogbu. Yeah, took off that walking boot this week. So the future is bright for him. A potential to make it back if this run goes long enough all the way down to Frisco. But more than anything, just great to see him moving in that right direction.
Yeah, and it's good to see not too many names on that list as we are now, 13, 14 weeks into the season. It's been a long haul, and well, the Bison have been able
and
to
they went the
it.
stretch.
Yeah.
They went the whole stretch of that Valley season without a bye. And so to be able to come out of that healthy and then to get that bye week in the postseason is just outstanding.
All right, let's take a look at the quarterbacks we're going to be seeing today for these two squads. Obviously, Trey Lance, the phenomenal freshman for North Dakota State. Chase Forcade, a little bit different. He is a senior coming in here, making his first start inside the Fargo Dome. We take a look at Trey's numbers, and boy, have they been impressive this year. Trey has been Mr. Everything for this Bison offense. Been throwing the football effectively when he needs to, been running the football effectively when he needs to. As we see his numbers, 23 passing touchdowns, still 0 interceptions. Unbelievable for
Alex,
a redshirt
there's no
freshman.
wood for me to knock on in here,
I know.
okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Those trees are all fake here in the lobby.
That's very true. 741 rushing yards for Trey, another 10 touchdowns on the ground. It's been a phenomenal season to see what this redshirt freshman has been able to do.
Well, and then even more, to continue to see a Bison quarterback finally getting the recognition. I know Easton got a little bit of it last year finally, but to be able to see Trey Lance getting that recognition from the Valley and being able to take that, and he took it in stride too. Actually, the offensive line, he told us that he got teased this week about all of the accolades he collected in the Missouri Valley Conference this week, and we assumed it was the defense.
Yeah, you
that
think
was
it would be the
razzing him.
defense that would say, "Oh, player of the year right there, making that throw." Player of the year. No, it was his own O-line.
Yeah.
And that's where you see that this team has really come together when they can do that.
And time again, in talking to athletes, you hear about when it's a fun environment, what a difference that makes. And it shows just how fun it is for this group.
Yeah, and Dylan Radin saying he's like our little brother. Trey's our little brother back there. All right, let's take a look at Chase Forcade as the Bison are going to be up against this guy. He can run the football a little bit. Savvy, senior, experienced.
He's been through it all.
Yeah, he has been through it all. Has been a very effective. The number that sticks out to you, though, there is that 10 interceptions.
And he's thrown a few this year, a few big interceptions this year.
His propensity to turn the ball over is something that...
But you know what stands out about Chase Forcade? He threw an interception on his first ever drive as a starting quarterback as a college football player, and he came out and he played well. That was at Georgia he did that, all right? And the kid came back. Kid. He's a competitor, and he's more than anything. What I love about Forcade is his personal story. Was obviously doing some research in him, found out his older brother has cerebral palsy, and he plays for him. And so he understands that it's more than football, it's bigger than that, and it's so tough because I'm a softie at heart. I talk a big game, but I'm a big softie, and so that human interest story makes it hard not to root for him, but well, you know where I am.
Yeah, you hate to see his college career come to an end today, but that's the breaks, man. I'm sorry about that. All right, let's go down to the field. Ryan Gellner and Kyle Emanuel, show us how it's done, guys.
Yeah, guys, and we're going to capitalize on Chase Forcade and talk a little bit more about him. He ran it 14 times last week, and as a defensive player, a running quarterback, adds a whole nother element.
Yeah, it really does, Ryan, and it's kind of for obvious reasons why a mobile quarterback gives you issues. But I want to talk a little bit about when NDSU is playing defense, what they need to do, because when you get into a man-to-man situation, when NDSU does decide to go man-to-man, that's when you really have to put the pressure on the D lineman. Hey, you have to keep this guy in the pocket. If he starts to improvise, because the reason that is everyone's back is turned to their guy. Your eyes are on the man you're covering. You have no vision on the quarterback, maybe other than a deep safety, depending on the coverage. So it's really going to be on the D line. And then obviously if you're playing the zone now, it makes it a little bit easier. Now you have zone eyes, and guys have eyes on the quarterback. But that's going to be one of my keys in this game, is keeping him contained.
You've mentioned it a couple times, eyes. People don't think about defense playing with eyes, but it's so important.
It really is, because when you have no vision on a quarterback and he starts to scramble, now you're still running down the field covering your guy, and the quarterback's run for 20, 30 yards before anyone even notices. So it's going to be key. It's key in a lot of areas in football, but it'll be key today against Chase Forcade.
There it is. Kyle Emanuel showing us how it's done on defense against a running quarterback. It's all about the eyes.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
All right, we're back out here in the tailgate section in another warm tent, very comfortable, and we got a very fired up crowd here, don't we? Yeah, all right, and I've got two contestants. Let's start out with you first, sir. Your name?
Duke Larson.
And where are you from, Duke?
I am from Jamestown, North Dakota.
All right. Blue Jay country. Yep. All right, here we go. You are playing for a $50 gift card to Big Irv's. That's either at Rose Creek or out in Horace.
All right.
Ready?
Yep.
Here's your question. According to the Bison Game Day, how many are listed as members of the Bison cheer team? Is it 18 or 35? And you can ask this very intelligent-looking crowd behind me.
What do you guys think? 18 or 35? 18.
18 is your final answer?
That's final answer.
And it is a good answer because that's the correct answer. 18.
Thank you.
Did you peek?
No.
Oh. Okay. Here we go. Your name, sir?
Will Easter.
Will? Where are you from?
Originally from Beach, North Dakota, and now I live in Fargo.
Okay, here we go. Which former NDSU coach and his current team played Nichols this season? Was it Chris Kleiman or was it Craig Bowl? And you saw how well they did with his question. You could ask them as well.
Chris Kleiman.
Chris Kleiman. You think he's correct? Yeah. Of course he's correct. He knows what he's doing. It is Chris Kleiman. K-State won that game 49-14.
Thank you.
There you go, Will. That's how easy it is, isn't it? Wasn't it easy? Woo! What's your name?
Riley.
Riley, can you say go Bison?
Go Bison.
Okay, let's do it one more time and with the help of everybody. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Go
Thank you so much, Mike, and welcome back into the lobby inside the Fargo Dome as North Dakota State and Nichols get set to play football. Brian Sean and Lee Timmerman back from the field level upstairs here as we get ready for football. Let's get into our keys to the football game. They're brought to you by Dakota Magic Casino. And we start with Monsters, Inc. And why Monsters, Inc.? Well, because Nichols has a player named Sully. And Sully's pretty good. 36.5 career sacks. The senior defensive end has a sack in all but 2 of the games he's played in this season. He's that good. Not a big guy, comes off the edge and comes hard. He's the FCS active leader in tackles. And Lee, he's a guy that they will rely on defensively.
They certainly will. They have to. He has the numbers, but I have to sit there in my own head and go, okay, what if he played in the Valley? How good would he be? He would still be talented, but would he be like Saunders or Williams or some of the really good defensive interior 3-technique guys we've seen? And I think my answer to that is no. And when I asked the Bison coaches about him, they said they don't have to do anything special with him this week other than just maybe slide of protection or maybe a double team. So, yes, he's good, but is he really worried? Have the Bison coaches worried? The answer to that is I don't think so.
North Dakota State certainly will know where 55 is. We'll see if 55 makes a difference in this football game. Our number 2 key to the football game, brought to you by Dakota Magic Casino, is turnovers. And turnovers is a big number in this football game. NDSU plus 13s. It means they've got it 13 more times than they've given it away. The problem is Nichols, they're -4. They've given it away, Brian, 4 more times than they've taken it away.
Well, first of all, I'm really disappointed that Nichols doesn't have a guy named Mike Wazowski, because then we'd have the perfect Monsters, Inc. Reference. For those of you that have seen that movie, I have a 4-year-old, so I watch it frequently. But when you talk about turnovers with Nichols, the interceptions from Forcade, some of those have been forced. He has a few of those in one game. He had 10. The number that sticks out to me is that they have 13 fumbles lost. I mean, they are losing almost a fumble every game, which is a big, big number. And for a team that's coming in here that is very aggressive when they're coming to hit you in North Dakota State, and a team that really likes to get after you and hit you hard and put some licks on you, ball security is going to be key for Nichols today. They cannot afford to have 2 or even 3 turnovers today. If they find themselves in that situation, they have 0 chance of winning the football game.
Chase Forcade has been intercepted in all but 3 games this year as well. Our third key to the football game, it's balance for North Dakota State. The Bison like to run it, they like to throw it, and most of the time they are balanced. And here's why we say balance. The Nichols defense, they're ranked 111th against the pass. They're ranked 32nd against the run. Now the Bison ranked 4th in the nation in running the football, but they're going to have to mix the pass in today as well, and I think they want to mix the pass in.
Yeah, but once that run gets established, the pass becomes a little bit easier. We've seen that. A number we don't have there on the keys to the game, but I think if you look at the entire season, that Trey Lance, 15% of his pass completions all year long have gone for touchdowns. One of the reasons for that is NDSU is averaging 300 yards a game on the ground. You hammer them up the middle, you soften them up, and then you hit them over the top. And I think that's a recipe that's going to work again today.
The Bison averaging those 300 yards on the ground a game. Nichols had over 300 yards against the University of North Dakota a week ago. They'll both try to run the football. They'll both try to win this thing in the trenches. When we come back, we talk to the Bison head coach. What's he think about Nichols? What's he think about North Dakota State? We'll find out that, plus more. We'll get you closer to kickoff here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
Games 25 straight here inside the Fargo Dome as the fans get ready for football. North Dakota State and Nichols. That opens up this week's Herdline News. It's brought to you by Gate City Bank. It's the 10th straight postseason for the Bison. It was 9 years ago this last week that NDSU went to Montana State to begin this remarkable run. Since then, NDSU is 32-2 in the FCS playoffs. In honors this week, NDSU started racking up regular season awards, including a clean sweep in the Missouri Valley Football Conference Awards. Matt Entz was named Coach of the Year. Derek Tuska, the Defensive Player of the Year. And Trey Lance wins both the Newcomer of the Year and the Offensive Player of the Year in the Valley. 11 Bison are on the all-conference team, including first-teamers Lance, Tuska, Ben Ellefson, Zach Johnson, Dylan Radens, Cordell Volson, Jabril Cox, and James Hendricks. In the classroom, 5 Bison have been added to the all-academic team. Ben Ellefson and Derek Tuska, they are both first-team all-academic. Jackson Hankey, James Kaiser, and Garrett Molstrom, they all are on the second team. And Garrett Wagner, he's a third-team all-academic. It proves this Bison team just continues to get things done. For what needs to get done today on the football field, I had a chance to catch up with Matt Entz outside the locker room earlier this afternoon. Well, Matt, it's the second season, as they say. How are the guys?
Good. I think we're as close to being 100% healthy as we can. There's a few things that are a few young men that are still banged up a little bit. Be game time decisions if they're going to play. But for the most part, our kids have their legs back. We were able to use the break to do some of those things. They understand the game plan. They feel like they're playing fast. They feel confident. And so those are the things that you want to have going into a playoff game.
Do you notice anything different with the younger guys, the freshmen that haven't been through this before, versus the older guys that have been here and done that?
Well, the older guys, you can tell the level of focus has ramped up. We had practice Saturday night, and immediately it was much more energy, much more just communicating, making sure they were asking questions and wanting all the details immediately on the game plan. The young guys, you can see, probably kind of step back a little bit and just try to follow the older guys and know that it's not necessarily a stressful time. It's just more of an urgent time of the season, and that, hey, rather be seen than heard in some moments and just do my job and go about my business.
What do you see when you look at Nichols? Obviously, they're on a roll. They're playing well. Their playoff experience, their experience. But what do you see when you look at tape?
Extremely athletic football team. On both sides of the football, they have some playmakers, the difference makers. Offensively, they got a quarterback that continues to extend plays. He's a winner. He's been there for the last 3 years when they've gone into the playoffs, and he's won playoff games. He's won conference championships. They have a big, long receiver that can go up and get it, and I'm concerned that he's better than any of the corners we have out there. And then they have a slew of backs that they play. And last week they had a big back that came in, Gums, and did a great job of running the football. And then on the defensive side, it all starts with their D-line. Sully, number 55, is a really good football player. And anytime you can have 36 or so sacks in your career, you're a difference maker. And he spends a lot of time in the backfield, and so we're going to have to know where he is. And I'm sure they're going to do some things, trying to change up where he lines up and use him different ways in different situations. And, in the back end, they're athletic. They're going to play a bunch of man, and hopefully we can get off some press coverage and get open when we need to.
Any difference in the message this week with the team? Because playoffs are a different animal. The team that loses, there is no tomorrow.
Well, that's it. I mean, every week's a one-game season. And so we're trying to put as much emphasis into this week as we can. And it's all about this one. And that's the only thing that we've continued to talk about. It's 1-0 for the week. And if we're fortunate enough to get the win, then we'll worry about it tomorrow.
It's your first time going through this as a head coach. Any different in your preparation this time around in the playoffs?
No, not necessarily. We used a lot of the same kind of floor plans that we had previously, maybe tweaked them a little bit based on when school was out or when classes were in session. But for the most part, we're trying just to stay with the plan that's been there for years. It's worked. Trying to continue just to keep relaying the message to the players that it's one and done. We need to, the teams that get hot stay hot in this time of year, and we need to be one of those teams.
I can tell you're ready for this one. Good luck, Coach.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You are looking live at the crowd waiting to get into the Fargo Dome. This crowd will soon get into the dome and watch a football game. Nichols and North Dakota State playoff football. It's next. We'll be right back.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Welcome back to the Fargo Dome for the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Brian Shawn, Kyle Emanuel, and Lee Timmerman with you in the lobby, about 15 minutes away from North Dakota State kicking off the FCS playoffs against Nicholls State. Let's get on to our Bobcat Heavy lifting report. Derek Tuska, the Missouri Valley Football Conference Defensive Player of the Year, was not sure if he was going to get that recognition, even though he had such a tremendous season, but it's very deserved based on how consistent he's been all season long.
Yeah, and I'm biased. Can you use your mic there? Yeah, thanks, Brent. I'm a little bit biased against, obviously, I played defensive end. I've talked to Tuska a lot throughout his career, and I just love this kid. I love the way he's worked, and I picked him for the simple. Obviously, I wanted to recognize him for that honor that I think he's very deserving of. But when you look at this game specifically, I think Chase Forcade is a guy that he's going to do a lot of improvising. He's going to run around a little bit. He's going to throw the ball. They're going to try and run it. I think Tuska has got to be big with NDSU trying to stop the run. But I also think when Forcade starts to run around, he starts to do that improvising, Tuska, along with the rest of the D-line, they got to keep him in the pocket. They have to do a good job against him because that's going to be, to me, maybe something that Nichols tries to take advantage of is their really good quarterback running around and making plays.
Well, Kyle, I want to ask you a little bit about, you played that position here, what Derek is doing, but talk about what I think is such an underrated part of the position, like hand play. People don't understand how important hand is. If you look in like with the guys working with Buddha stuff, they're working on their hands. They're not working on their feet or bull rushing somebody. Yeah. Why is it important? How is it important? And how do you use it?
Well, it's everything. It really is. And when I talk to young kids about football, I say that's one of the first things I tell them, Lee, is like when I was young and I played in high school, I didn't realize how much these things are like weapons. Your hands, they're like weapons. They're the things you use to get offensive linemen off you. And regardless that I know holding is a penalty, but you often like it happens on every single play. So using your hands, using your length, especially a guy like Derek Tuska, a guy who is a little bit longer, keeping offensive linemen off of you and ultimately getting off blocks. I know it may sound simple, but that's the key to making plays as a defender.
And obviously a key for North Dakota State is to have success on first and second down, so you get in a third and long, and that's where things get dangerous for teams, especially in this building. First and second down efficiency defensively is going to be important.
Yeah, it really is, and I think, Nick, we talked about it at the top of the show, but Nichols coming into the Fargo Dome for the first time, obviously with the veteran quarterback, I think that helps. But if this crowd starts to get on top of you, and you're not good on first and second down, how about that Bison defense starts rolling throughout the Fargo Dome, PA speakers, it could be a long day for Nichols in trying to go against this Bison defense.
Well, to follow up on that a little bit with teams coming in here the first time, I had a really interesting conversation with Grant Olson, the linebacker coach, and Grant was talking about some of his thoughts on why teams come in here and don't perform well. Well, Grant was saying that these teams, they're good in their conference. They think, hey, our stuff works. We will come in here, we will do our stuff. We know NDSU is good, but we'll see how it is. Well, look at the teams in the Valley who have some success against NDSU. It's because they're not doing just their normal stuff. They're doing things specifically to NDSU. And teams who come in here for the first time run their stuff normally. By that time, they figure out that they have to do something special. They're down by 21 points.
That's usually how it works, too, unfortunately. Let's now get into our Pro Seed Players Roundtable. We had talked quite a bit about Chase Forcade, 4-year starter. This is a kid that actually had a couple of FBS offers, one to Arkansas State, got a late offer to Maryland. People thought pretty highly of this kid coming out of high school, and the one thing that stood out to me about him, Kyle,
last weekend, he's not afraid of contact. He will put himself in harm's way, which can be dangerous when you're going up against Code Green.
Yeah, and I think he's a savvy, like I said, I think he's a savvy veteran, and he moves around a lot, and obviously that's going to be key. But for me also, if you're a Nichols fan, you're looking at this game, he can't turn the ball over. I know we've talked about it here, but I think he has 40-plus interceptions in his career, and so that's going to be something that he's got to be their guy. He's got to manage this game. He's got to be able to run around. Obviously, they have to be able to run the ball, but he's got to take care of the football.
I think the Bison are more worried about what Forcade can do when and if he gets outside the tackles than if he stays behind the line of scrimmage in terms of passing.
We should get into the North Dakota State offense. Have not talked about this group nearly enough, probably all season long, and certainly the season Trey Lance has had. Newcomer of the year, player of the year, freshman of the year. What accolade has he not won in the Missouri Valley? This is a group that is the 4th highest scoring offense in the nation, which I know the defense has gotten a lot of the accolades, deserved, but the offense has run for 3,600 yards already offensively in 12 games.
Well, and to me, about what I'm so impressed about this offense is just how many weapons there are. When you look at the backfield, you just don't know. It might be a Kobe Johnson, doesn't even play one week, and then the next week he's busting out 45, 50-yard runs. You just don't know who's going to do it in the backfield, and you don't know who's going to do it through the air. Trey Lance has found everyone on this team. They all have scored touchdowns. The tight ends seem like they're scoring more. That might be because of the coach in that room, Tyler Roll. But there's just, if you take away one thing, I think this offense has done an unbelievable job of finding, are you going to stack the box? Are you going to take away the run? Trey Lance has been that guy throwing the ball around. If you're going to take away the pass, obviously NDSU's bread and butter, running the ball. And this offensive line, you can't say enough about the job they've done this year.
The thing I think Trey will find real interesting is last week against UND, Nichols played man-to-man almost the entire game. If they play man-to-man on the outside today almost exclusively, look for quarterback run, because if those guys are not in the run fits and you now +1 run them with an athlete like Trey, he's going to have some big running plays today.
That's what me and Ryan talked about down on the field. Well, we were talking more about NDSU's defense, but when you go look at Nichols, yeah, they're going to probably play more man than NDSU does. And now I look for Trey to start scrambling. We've seen him do that a lot. Obviously, your eyes are on your receiver. You're not looking at the quarterback. He starts to take off. What are you going to do now? It could be a big day for Trey on the ground as well as through the air.
One more thing on Trey before we wrap up, though. We talked about his pass streak without an interception. He has now gone 68 passes beyond where Easton Stick was, and that was a wow when he got to Stick's number.
And if Nichols wants to heat up, North Dakota State #1 in the nation in sacks allowed this season. Offensive lines did a nice job protecting as well. That'll do it for our Pro Seed Players Roundtable. We'll step aside and be back with our final thoughts from here at the Fargo Dome as we get ready for North Dakota State and Nicholls State on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
Welcome you back into the Fargo Dome lobby. It is cleared in. The folks are inside getting set for North Dakota State and Nichols here in the second round of the FCS playoffs. Let's get the final thoughts of our crew as we are just under 4 minutes on our Coors Light countdown clock. We start with Brian Sean and Lee Timmerman.
Brian Sean, Lee Timmerman here with you. I think my final thought going to this team is that third unit, the special teams. North Dakota State has been so good in the return game, both punt return and kickoff return. I think the Buys are going to bust a big one today. It's Trevor Height, Ty Brooks, somebody in the return game. We're going to see a long return today. It's going to get the Dome crowd fired up.
Well, my final thoughts are on what I always say is the most important part of football that nobody pays attention about, and that's the offensive line, specifically Nichols' offensive line. They have a couple of guys. I mean, they're all big because they're playing offense, in the FCS, but they're pear-shaped, if you know what I mean. And pear-shaped offensive linemen have a tendency not to be able to hold up the entire game against NDSU. The Bison are only allowing 128 yards rushing, one of the tops in the FCS. I think Nichols has to run the ball today to have a chance to win, and I don't think they'll be able to do it very successfully.
And they have a tendency to get a little grabby, too, on the offensive line. Let's go to Ryan Gellner.
Nichols has the Offensive Player of the Year and the Defensive Player of the Year in the Southland Conference. That's in the Southland Conference. I want to see if that Offensive Player of the Year and that Defensive Player of the Year, how that translates to the Missouri Valley Football Conference, because I think it's a totally different ball game. Speaking of defensive players and guys that know Conference Player of the Year, how about Kyle Emanuel?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think, we've talked a lot about on the field. We talked about Chase Forcade. We've talked about, Nichols' ability to run the ball, NDSU's ability to throw the ball against his defense. I like to look at the intangibles, and I like to look, this is December. It's December football. We're in the Fargo Dome, and it's playoff time. It doesn't really matter who's coming in here. So I'm just excited to see this atmosphere. I'm excited for a lot of these young guys. Trey Lance playing the first playoff game. And I want to see how this team responds regardless of, like I said, who they're playing. I think they should come out of this game feeling good. Again, going into a second-round matchup, whoever it's going to be tough. So I'm just excited. It's playoff football again. Alex, Beth, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Kyle. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting atmosphere.
Is this exciting? I think we've said exciting more than final thoughts in this one.
You should say exciting as much as possible because of how exciting this is. We got 1 minute left on our Coors Light countdown clock. Beth?
I'm excited. No, honestly, I can't wait to see Trey Lance get his first start in a playoff game, earn all those accolades. This is kind of that campaign now where it really picks up, where the entire nation is watching. All those voters who don't watch NDSU football all year, they're going to have their eyes on him, and I can't wait to see him put on a show and really earn those national awards.
Hard to believe that there's anybody that hasn't watched North Dakota State football all year long.
Apparently people think you already know what the outcome's going to be before they play the game.
Evidently.
So they don't think it's... No.
Well, the playoff committee selected North Dakota State as the number 1 overall seed. Most deserving is the number 1 overall seed. This Bison team, they are playing at a different level right now. We'll see what Trey Lance can do. We'll see how this run game can handle what this Nichols defense wants to bring. But
Bison after a bye.
I tell you what, yeah.
Chomping at the bit. It's going to be a fun one. This one's over on ESPN3, so go ahead and get that set up or go take a cup of cookies over to your neighbor.
Yeah, we gotta run into the dome. It's football.